The rain was falling hard that night. It was the kind of storm that made people stay inside their homes and lock their doors. The wind was howling through the trees, and the mountain road was empty, except for the water rushing down like small rivers. Kang Do-yun was about to close his shop. He had been working since morning, fixing an old truck that belonged to a farmer from the next village. His hands were covered in grease, and his back was hurting. At 34 years old, he felt much older. The small auto repair shop had been his life for the past 10 years, but these days, it felt more like a prison than a passion. He wiped his hands on a dirty rag and looked around the shop. Tools hung on the walls. Old car parts sat in corners. And on a small shelf near his desk, there was a photograph in a wooden frame. It showed a young woman with a beautiful smile, standing next to Do-hyun on their wedding day. Her name was Himin, and she had been dead for 3 years. Do-hyun tried not to look at the photo too often. Every time he did, the guilt came back like a punch to the chest. She had died in a car accident. Her brakes had failed on a mountain road not far from here. And Do-hyun, the mechanic who could fix anything, had not checked her car that morning. He had been too busy, too tired, too careless. He never forgave himself. The sound of a car engine broke through the storm. Do-hyun frowned and walked to the garage door. He saw headlights coming up the road, but something was wrong. The car was moving strangely, jerking and slowing down, like it was fighting to stay alive. Then it stopped right in front of his shop. Smoke was coming from under the hood. Do-hyun grabbed his jacket and ran out into the rain. By the time he reached the car, a luxury sedan that looked brand new, the driver's door was already opening. An elderly man stepped out. He was tall and thin, with white hair and a face full of deep wrinkles. But his eyes were sharp. They were golden, almost glowing in the darkness. "Please," the old man said. His voice was calm but urgent. "We need help." The passenger door opened and a teenage girl came out. She looked about 15 or 16 years old. She had long black hair that was already getting wet from the rain, and she had the same golden eyes as the old man. She was shivering, but Do-hyun noticed something strange. She did not seem scared. She seemed like she was holding something back, like she was trying very hard to stay calm. "Come inside," Do-hyun said quickly. "Both of you. I will look at the car." He led them into the shop and gave them towels to dry off. The old man thanked him politely and introduced himself as Mr. Yoon. The girl was his granddaughter, Sira. They had been traveling through the mountains when their car suddenly broke down. "I do not know what happened," Mr. Yoon said. "One moment it was fine. The next moment, everything stopped working." Do-hyun nodded and went outside to push the car into the garage. The rain was getting heavier, and the wind was getting stronger. Once the car was inside, he opened the hood and looked at the engine. What he saw made him stop. The engine did not look normal. Some of the parts were made of materials he had never seen before. They were smooth and dark, almost like glass, but they felt warm under his fingers. The wiring was strange too. It was not copper or aluminum. It looked like thin threads of silver light. Do-hyun had been fixing cars for 15 years. He had seen every kind of engine, every kind of problem. But this was something completely different. This was impossible. He looked back at Mr. Yoon and Sira. They were sitting quietly on an old bench near his desk. Mr. Yoon was watching him with those golden eyes, and there was something in his expression. It was like he was waiting to see what Do-hyun would do. "This car," Do-hyun said slowly. "What is it?" Mr. Yoon smiled a little. "Can you fix it?" It was not an answer, but something in the old man's voice made Do-hyun want to try. Maybe it was the challenge. Maybe it was the mystery. Or maybe it was just the fact that he had nothing else to do, nothing else to live for except his work. "I will try," he said. He worked for hours. The storm continued outside, thunder shaking the walls and lightning flashing through the windows. Sierra fell asleep on the bench, her head resting on her grandfather's shoulder. But Mr. Yoon stayed awake, watching Do-yoon with quiet attention. As Do-yoon worked, the old man began asking questions. Simple questions at first. How long had Do-yoon lived here? Did he have family? Did he like his work? Then the questions became deeper. Do you have regrets? Mr. Yoon asked. Do-yoon's hands stopped moving. He did not look up from the engine. Everyone has regrets, but yours are heavy, Mr. Yoon said softly. I can see it in your eyes. You carry something painful. Do-yoon said nothing. He did not like talking about his feelings, especially not with strangers. Sierra woke up at some point and started walking around the shop. She moved quietly, looking at the tools and the old car parts. Then she stopped in front of the shelf where Do-yoon kept his photographs. She picked up the wedding photo and stared at it for a long time. When Do-yoon looked over, he saw something that surprised him. There were tears in her golden eyes. She was beautiful, Sierra whispered. Do-yoon felt a strange pain in his chest. Yes, she was. Sierra put the photo back carefully and returned to her grandfather's side. But she kept glancing at Do-yoon with an expression he could not understand. It was sad and guilty at the same time. Finally, after working through most of the night, Do-yoon managed to fix the engine. He did not know how he did it. His hands seemed to move on their own, connecting parts and adjusting systems in ways that should not have worked. But when he turned the key, the engine came to life, purring smoothly like nothing had ever been wrong. Mr. Yoon stood up and walked over to him. The old man put a hand on Do-yoon's shoulder and looked at him with deep respect. You have the gift, Mr. Yoon said quietly. Just like she said you would. Do-hyun frowned. What do you mean? Who said? Before Mr. Yoon could answer, headlights flooded through the garage windows. Do-hyun turned and saw 3 black SUVs pulling up outside his shop. Men in dark clothes were getting out, and they were carrying weapons. Mr. Yoon's face went pale. Sierra grabbed her grandfather's arm, her golden eyes wide with fear. They found us, she whispered. Do-hyun looked at the strangers, then at the armed men outside. He did not know what was happening. He did not know who these people were or why they were being hunted, but he knew one thing. He was not going to let anything bad happen in his shop. Not tonight. Stay behind me, he said. Both of you. The black SUVs sat outside the shop like predators waiting to attack. Do-hyun counted at least 8 men, all wearing tactical gear and carrying weapons that looked military grade. This was not the police. This was something else entirely. The leader stepped forward. He was a tall man with a shaved head and cold eyes. He wore a long black coat over his tactical vest, and he walked with the confidence of someone who was used to getting what he wanted. Good evening, the man said. His voice was smooth but dangerous. My name is Director Kwon. I work for a special government division. We are looking for 2 fugitives, an old man and a young girl. Have you seen them? Do-hyun kept his face calm. Behind him, he could feel Mr. Yoon and Sierra pressed against the wall, hidden in the shadows of the garage. The main lights were off, and only a small lamp near his workbench was glowing. Fugitives? Do-hyun said. Out here? In this storm? Director Kwon smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. We tracked their vehicle to this location, a silver sedan. I can see it in your garage right now. Do-hyun shrugged. A couple came by earlier. Old man and a girl. Their car was making noise, so I took a quick look. Nothing serious. They left about an hour ago. Left? Director Kwon raised an eyebrow. In this weather? Without their car? They called someone. A friend from the next town came to pick them up. said they would come back for the car tomorrow. It was a weak lie, and Do-hyun knew it. But he kept his eyes steady and his voice calm. He had learned a long time ago that confidence was more important than truth when you were trying to convince someone. Director Kwon studied him for a long moment. Then he looked past Do-hyun into the garage. His eyes moved slowly across the tools, the car parts, the shadows in the corners. You live alone here? He asked. No family? Do-hyun felt a flash of pain. My wife died 3 years ago. Something flickered in Director Kwon's expression. Interest, maybe. Or suspicion. I am sorry to hear that. What was her name? Why does that matter? Director Kwon smiled again. Just making conversation. You seem like a man who has seen some hard times. I understand that. I have seen hard times too. That is why I do this job. To protect people from dangerous things. Those two did not seem dangerous to me, Do-hyun said. Just an old man and a scared girl. Appearances can be deceiving. Director Kwon stepped closer. He was now standing just a few feet away from Do-hyun. Those two are not what they seem. They are extremely dangerous. They have powers that you cannot imagine. If they are still here, if you are hiding them, you are putting yourself in great danger. Do-hyun met his gaze without flinching. I told you. They left. For a moment, nothing happened. The rain continued to fall. The wind continued to blow. Director Kwon's men stood behind him like statues, their hands on their weapons. Then Director Kwon nodded slowly. Very well. We will search the area. If you see them again, call this number. He handed Do-hyun a small black card with a phone number printed in silver. And if I find out you lied to me tonight, I will come back. And next time, I will not be so polite. He turned and walked back to his SUV. His men followed, their boots splashing in the puddles. One by one, the vehicles started their engines and drove away into the storm. Do-hyun waited until the headlights disappeared. Then he let out a breath he did not know he was holding. They are gone, he said quietly. Mr. Yoon and Sira came out of the shadows. The old man's face was tired but grateful. Sira was trembling, and her golden eyes were brighter than before, almost glowing in the dim light. Thank you, Mr. Yoon said. You did not have to do that. You put yourself at risk for strangers. Do-hyun looked at them. Really looked at them. The golden eyes. The strange car. The impossible engine. The armed men hunting them like animals. Who are you? He asked. And do not give me riddles this time. I want the truth. Mr. Yoon sighed. He suddenly looked very old, like a man who had been carrying a heavy burden for too long. The truth is complicated, he said, and dangerous. Are you sure you want to hear it? Those men will come back, Do-hyun said. I saw it in that director's eyes. He did not believe me. So whatever trouble you are in, I am in it now too. I deserve to know why. Sira spoke up. Her voice was soft but steady. He's right, grandfather. We have to tell him. We own that much. Mr. Yoon nodded slowly. He walked over to the workbench and sat down on a stool. Sira stood beside him, her hand on his shoulder. What do you know about dragons? Mr. Yoon asked. Do-hyun blinked. Dragons? Like in fairy tales? Not fairy tales. History. Ancient history that most humans have forgotten. Mr. Yoon's golden eyes seemed to glow brighter. Thousands of years ago, there were beings called Titan dragons. They were powerful creatures who lived alongside humans. They protected them, guided them, helped them build civilizations. Do-hyun wanted to laugh. This sounded crazy. But something in Mr. Yoon's voice, something in those strange eyes, made him listen. Over time, humans grew afraid of the dragons, Mr. Yoon continued. They forgot the kindness and remembered only the power. They began to hunt the dragons, kill them, Within a few centuries, the Titan dragons were nearly extinct. The survivors went into hiding. They learned to disguise themselves as humans, to live in the shadows. Sira looked at Do-yoon with an expression that was both sad and hopeful. "We're two of the last ones," she said quietly. "Grandfather and I, we are Titan dragons." The barrage fell silent. Outside, the storm was finally starting to calm down. The thunder was fading into the distance. Do-hyun stared at them. His mind was racing, trying to process what he had just heard. Dragons, real dragons, living among humans. Being hunted by men with guns. It was impossible. It was insane. But then he thought about the car engine, the materials that should not exist, the way his hands had moved on their own, fixing something that no normal mechanic could fix. "Show me," he said. Mr. Yoon and Sira exchanged a glance. Then, slowly they began to change. It started with their skin. Scales appeared, shimmering like gold and copper in the lamplight. Their eyes grew brighter, and their pupils became vertical slits. Wings began to unfold from their backs, beautiful and terrible, like something from a dream. They did not fully transform. They stopped halfway, still human in shape, but clearly something more. Something ancient. Something powerful. Do-hyun took a step back. His heart was pounding. He wanted to run, to hide, to pretend this was not happening. But he forced himself to stay, to look, to see. "We mean you no harm," Mr. Yoon said. His voice was deeper now, echoing slightly. "We never wanted to bring danger to your door. But fate had other plans." "What do you mean?" Do-hyun asked. Mr. Yoon's expression softened. "Your wife, Himin, she knew about us. She was our guardian." The name hit Do-hyun like a punch. His legs suddenly felt weak. "What did you say?" "Your wife was part of an ancient bloodline," Sira said gently. "Humans who swore to protect the Titan dragons. She dedicated her life to keeping us safe. And 3 years ago, she died doing exactly that." Do-hyun's world tilted. Everything he thought he knew, everything he believed about his wife, about her death, about his own guilt, was starting to crumble. "No," he whispered. "That is not possible. She died in a car accident. Her brakes failed. I should have checked them. It was my fault." Sira's golden eyes filled with tears. "It was not an accident," she said. "Her brakes were sabotaged. She was murdered. And she died protecting me." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Do-hyun felt something breaking inside him. Something that had been holding together for 3 years was finally falling apart. "I do not understand," he said, his voice cracking. "Why did she never tell me? Why did she keep this secret?" Mr. Yoon stepped forward and placed a gentle hand on Do-hyun's shoulder. "She was trying to protect you. She loved you more than anything. But there are some burdens that cannot be shared. Some dangers that must be faced alone." Do-hyun looked at the photograph on the shelf. His wife's smiling face, her beautiful eyes. All those years together, and he never knew who she really was. But he was about to find out. Do-hyun sat on the floor of his garage with his back against the wall. His hands were shaking. His mind was spinning. Everything he thought he knew about his life had just been turned upside down. Mr. Yoon and Sira had returned to their human forms. They sat across from him, giving him space, waiting for him to process what he had just learned. The storm outside had finally stopped, but inside Do-hyun's heart, a different storm was just beginning. "Tell me everything," he said finally. His voice was rough. "From the beginning, I need to know." Mr. Yoon nodded slowly. "Your wife came from a long line of guardians. Her family had been protecting Titan dragons for over 500 years. When she was young, her mother trained her in the old ways. How to recognize us, how to help us, how to keep our existence hidden from those who would hurt us. She never said anything, Doyun whispered. Not once. We were married for 6 years. The guardian oath is sacred, Sira said softly. They cannot tell anyone, not even the people they love most. It is the only way to keep everyone safe. If ordinary humans knew about us, they would become targets too. Dohyun thought about all those times Hymin had disappeared for a few hours. All those phone calls she took in the other room. All those nights when she seemed worried, but refused to explain why. He had thought she just needed space. He had trusted her. Now he understood that she had been living a double life, protecting creatures that most people believed were just myths. How did you know her? He asked. Looking at Sira, the girl's eyes dropped to the floor. Pain crossed her face, fresh and raw. I was alone when Hymin found me, Sira said quietly. My parents were killed by hunters when I was very young. Grandfather was searching for me, but he did not know where I was. I had been hiding in the mountains for months, afraid to trust anyone. She paused, taking a shaky breath. Hymin discovered me living in a cave near here. She brought me food, clothes, medicine. She visited me every week, sometimes more often. She was the first human who showed me kindness since my parents died. She treated me like family. Mr. Yoon continued the story. When I finally found Sira, Hymin was already taking care of her. She helped us reunite. She arranged safe houses for us, gave us new identities, made sure we could move through human society without being detected. She was the best guardian I had ever known. Dahyun's chest ached. This was a side of his wife he had never seen. A hero, a protector, someone who risked everything to help others. What happened 3 years ago? He asked. The question felt heavy on his tongue. He was not sure he wanted to hear the answer, but he needed to know. Sira's hands clenched into fists. The hunters found us. The same organization that came here tonight. Director Kwan and his people. They had been tracking us for months. Hymin was driving me to a safe location when they caught up with us. The memory seemed to overwhelm her. Tears started falling down her cheeks. She tried to lose them on the mountain roads, but there were too many. They surrounded us. And then the car started acting strange. The brakes stopped working. Hymin realized what had happened. They had sabotaged her car somehow. They wanted to make it look like an accident. Mr. Yoon put his arm around Sira. His old face was full of grief. The car went off the road. Sira continued, her voice breaking. We crashed into the trees. I was hurt but alive. Hymin was hurt worse, much worse. But she did not care about herself. She only cared about getting me out. Do-hyun felt tears burning in his own eyes. He could picture it so clearly. His wife, bleeding and broken, thinking only of saving someone else. She told me to run, Sira whispered. She said the hunters would be there soon. She said I had to find her husband. She said his name was Doan and that he would help me. She said he had the gift, even if he did not know it yet. Then she pushed me out of the car and told me to go. And you left her there? Do-hyun asked. There was no accusation in his voice, just pain. I did not want to. I tried to pull her out, but she would not let me. She said if I stayed, they would catch us both. She said my life was more important. She made me promise to survive, to find you someday and tell you the truth. Sira looked up at Do-hyun with eyes full of guilt and sorrow. I have carried that promise for 3 years. Every day, I thought about you, about what you must be feeling, about how much you must hate whoever was responsible for taking her away. And the whole time, I knew it was my fault. She died because of me. Do-hyun stared at her. This girl, this young dragon who looked so human, had been carrying the weight of his wife's death on her shoulders for years. She was just a child when it happened, and she had lived with that guilt ever since. He thought about all the nights he had blamed himself. All the times he had wished he could go back and check those brakes. All the anger and despair and self-hatred that had eaten away at him. But it was never his fault. It was never about the brakes. His wife had been murdered, and the girl sitting in front of him had been carrying the same burden of guilt that he had been carrying. They were both victims. They had both lost Hyman, and they had both been suffering alone. Slowly, Do-yoon stood up. He walked over to Sira and knelt down in front of her. She flinched, as if expecting him to yell at her, to blame her, to push her away. Instead, he reached out and gently took her hands. "It was not your fault," he said quietly. "Do you hear me? It was not your fault. Hyman made her choice. She chose to protect you because that is who she was. That is the woman I married. She would never have let anyone she cared about get hurt if she could stop it." Sira's tears fell faster. "But if I had not been there, she would still be alive. You would still have your wife. And you would be dead," Do-hyun said firmly. "Hyman loved you. I can see that now. She would not want you to spend your life feeling guilty. She would want you to live, to be happy, to find peace." The words came from somewhere deep inside him, a place that had been locked away for 3 years, a place where Heenan's love still lived, even after death. Sira broke down completely. She threw her arms around Do-hyun and sobbed into his shoulder. He held her tight, this strange girl who was not human, this creature from ancient legends who was just a scared child carrying too much pain. Mr. Yoon watched them with tears in his own golden eyes. "You are truly her husband," he said softly. "You have her heart." Do-hyun looked at him over Sira's shoulder. "You said I have a gift. What did you mean?" Mr. Yoon wiped his eyes. "The guardian bloodline does not just choose anyone. It passes through families, carrying with it certain abilities. Your wife recognized that you had the potential from the moment she met you. Your skill with machines, your ability to fix things that should be beyond repair, your connection to objects and how they work. That is not ordinary talent. That is guardian magic sleeping inside you." Do-hyun thought about the engine he had fixed earlier, the impossible materials, the way his hands had known what to do even when his mind did not understand. "She married me because of that?" he asked. "No," Mr. Yoon said firmly. "She married you because she loved you. The magic was just a sign that you were meant to be part of this world. But love came first. It always does." Before anyone could say more, there was a sound outside. Car engines. Coming closer. Sira pulled back from Do-hyun's arms, her eyes wide with fear. "They are back. Director Kwon is back." Mr. Yoon stood up quickly, but Do-hyun could see the exhaustion in his movements. The old dragon was weak. Whatever power he had, it was fading with age. Do-hyun made a decision. He grabbed Sira's hand and pulled her toward the back of the garage. "There is a basement," he said. "A hidden room. Hyman insisted we build it when we bought this place. I never understood why. Now I do." He pushed aside a heavy shelf to reveal a trapdoor in the floor. It was covered in dust, unused for years. But it opened smoothly when he pulled the handle. "Get inside," he said. "Both of you. I will deal with them." "You cannot face them alone," Mr. Yoon protested. Do-hyun looked at the old dragon with new determination in his eyes. "I have been alone for 3 years. Tonight I found out my wife was a hero. The least I can do is try to be one too. Now go." He helped them down into the basement and closed the trapdoor. Then he pushed the shelf back into place and turned to face whatever was coming through his door. The headlights were getting brighter. The engines were getting louder. Director Kwon was coming back, just as Do-hyun had feared. And this time, he would not leave without getting what he wanted. The garage door burst open with a loud crash. Director Kwon walked in first, followed by a dozen armed men. Their weapons were drawn, their faces cold and focused. This was not a polite visit anymore. This was a raid. I gave you a chance, Director Kwon said calmly. I gave you the opportunity to tell the truth. You chose to lie to me. That was a mistake. Do-hyun stood his ground. His heart was pounding, but he forced himself to stay calm. I told you. They left. We tracked their vehicle. It has not moved. We monitored the roads. No one passed through. Director Kwon stepped closer, his cold eyes studying Do-hyun's face. They are still here. And you are going to tell me where. I do not know what you are talking about. Director Kwon sighed like a teacher disappointed in a student. He nodded to his men, and they spread out through the garage. They began searching everywhere, throwing tools off shelves, overturning tables, breaking open cabinets. They moved with brutal efficiency, destroying everything Do-hyun had built over the past decade. Do-hyun watched in silence. He did not try to stop them. He knew that any resistance would just make things worse. All he could do was hope that the hidden basement would stay hidden. One of the men found the photograph of Hyun on the shelf. He picked it up and looked at it with a cruel smile. Pretty wife, he said. What happened to her? Do-hyun's hands clenched into fists. Put that down. The man laughed and tossed the photograph to Director Kwon. The director caught it and studied the picture carefully. Something changed in his expression. Recognition. Interest. Hyun Kang, he said slowly. I remember this face. She was on our watch list years ago. A suspected Guardian sympathizer. We could never prove anything, but we knew she was connected to the dragons somehow. He looked at Do-hyun with new understanding. So that is why you are protecting them. Your wife was involved in this. She passed the mission to you. My wife died in a car accident, Do-hyun said through gritted teeth. She had nothing to do with any of this. Director Kwon smiled coldly. Is that what you believe? That it was an accident? He shook his head slowly. We made sure that car would fail. We needed to send a message to the Guardian network. We needed them to know that protecting dragons has consequences. The words hit Do-hyun like a hammer. His worst fears, the ones that had haunted him for 3 years, were suddenly confirmed. It was not an accident. It was never an accident. These people, this organization, had murdered his wife. Rage exploded inside him. He lunged at Director Kwon without thinking, wanting nothing more than to wrap his hands around the man's throat. But 2 of the soldiers grabbed him before he could get close. They threw him to the ground and pinned him there with their boots on his back. I understand your anger, Director Kwon said, looking down at him with fake sympathy. Really, I do. But your wife made her choice. She chose to protect monsters instead of living a normal life with her husband. She chose them over you. And in the end, that choice killed her. Do-hyun struggled against the men holding him down. They are not monsters. You are the monster. You kill innocent people. You murder anyone who gets in your way. Innocent? Director Kwon laughed. Those creatures are not innocent. They are dangerous. They have powers that could destroy cities. They pretend to be peaceful, but they are predators wearing human masks. My organization exists to protect humanity from them. Everything we do, every hard decision we make, is for the greater good. He crouched down so he was eye level with Do-hyun. Now, I will ask you one more time. Where are they hiding? Do-hyun spit in his face. Director Kwon calmly wiped his cheek with a handkerchief. Then he stood up and looked at his men. Burn it down. If they are hiding somewhere in this building, the fire will force them out. The soldiers moved quickly. They poured fuel on the walls, the workbenches, the cars waiting for repair. The smell of gasoline filled the air. One of them took out a lighter and held it up. Wait, Director Kwon said. He looked down at Do-hyun one more time. Last chance. Tell me where they are, and I will let you walk out of here alive. Do-hyun thought about Himin, about the secret life she had lived, about the people she had protected, about the sacrifice she had made. If she could die for her beliefs, then so could he. Go to hell, he said. Director Kwon shrugged. Your choice. He nodded to the man with the lighter. The flame touched the fuel, and the garage erupted in fire. The soldiers dragged Do-hyun toward the exit. They threw him outside onto the wet ground and stepped back to watch the building burn. Director Kwon stood beside him, his hands clasped behind his back. A shame, the director said. You could have lived. You could have started over. Instead, you will die here, surrounded by the ashes of everything you loved. Just like your wife. The fire was spreading fast. Flames climbed the walls and reached for the ceiling. Smoke poured out of every opening. And somewhere inside, hidden in the basement, Mr. Yoon and Sira were trapped. Do-hyun struggled to his feet. He had to do something. He could not let them die. But the soldiers blocked his path, their weapons pointed at his chest. Then something happened. The ground beneath the burning building began to shake. At first, Do-hyun thought it was just the structure collapsing. But the shaking grew stronger, more rhythmic, like a heartbeat. The flames flickered and bent in unnatural directions. And then the floor exploded. Sira burst out of the fire like a comet. But she was not the teenage girl Do-hyun met earlier. She had transformed completely. Her body was covered in golden scales that glowed like molten metal. Wings spread from her back, wide and magnificent. Her eyes burned with ancient power. She was a dragon. A real Titan dragon. And she was beautiful and terrifying all at once. Mr. Yoon followed behind her, but he was struggling. His transformation was incomplete, his body flickering between human and dragon. Age and exhaustion were taking their toll. He could not fight. He could barely fly. Sira let out a roar that shook the mountains. The soldiers stumbled back in shock and fear. Even Director Kwon looked surprised for the first time. Open fire! He shouted. Bullets flew through the air, but Sira moved faster than anything Do-hyun had ever seen. She swept her wing in front of Mr. Yoon, creating a shield of golden light that deflected the bullets like raindrops. Then she breathed fire, not at the soldiers, but at their vehicles, turning the SUVs into burning wrecks. In the chaos, Do-hyun saw his chance. He ran toward Mr. Yoon and grabbed the old man's arm. Can you walk? Barely, Mr. Yoon admitted. His face was pale and covered in sweat. Sira cannot hold him off forever. We need to run. I know a place, Do-hyun said. The tunnels. Himin told me there were old mining tunnels in the mountains. She said they led to a safe place. Mr. Yoon's eyes widened. She knew about the sanctuary. Of course she did. She was our guardian. Sira landed beside them, her massive form blocking the soldiers' line of sight. Go, she said. Her voice was deeper now, echoing with power. I will cover you. You cannot fight them all alone, Do-hyun protested. I am not alone, she said. Her golden eyes looked at him with something like hope. I have you now. Both of you. Now run. I will follow. Do-hyun wanted to argue, but Mr. Yoon pulled him toward the tree line behind the burning garage. They moved as fast as the old dragon could manage, stumbling over rocks and roots in the darkness. Behind them, Sira continued to fight. Fire and light filled the night sky. Soldiers screamed. Weapons fired. It was chaos and destruction, but also something else. It was the first time in centuries that a Titan dragon had shown her true form to the world. And nothing would ever be the same again. The forest was dark and dense. Do-hyun helped Mr. Yoon through the trees, their feet crunching on fallen leaves and broken branches. Every few seconds, Do-hyun looked back toward the burning garage. He could see flashes of light and hear the sounds of battle. Sira was still fighting. "She will be fine," Mr. Yoon said, reading the worry on his face. "Sira is stronger than she looks. And the hunters have never faced a dragon in full transformation before. They do not know what they are dealing with. What about you?" Do-hyun asked. The old man was leaning heavily on his shoulder, barely able to keep moving. "You need to rest. Rest can wait. If we stop now, they will catch us." Mr. Yoon pointed ahead through the trees. "The tunnel entrance should be just over that ridge. Your wife showed it to us years ago. It leads deep into the mountain, to a place the hunters have never found." They pushed forward. The ground was uneven, and twice Do-hyun almost lost his footing on the slippery rocks. But he kept going, driven by something he could not quite name. Determination, anger, hope, maybe all three. Finally, they reached a rocky outcropping covered in vines and moss. It looked like nothing special, just another part of the mountain. But when Mr. Yoon pulled aside some of the vegetation, Do-hyun saw the opening. A tunnel carved into the stone, just wide enough for two people to walk side by side. "Hymin found this place when she was young," Mr. Yoon explained. "Her mother brought her here, just as her grandmother had brought her mother. It has been a guardian secret for generations." Do-hyun stepped into the tunnel. The air inside was cold and smelled like earth and old stone. Darkness stretched ahead of them, but after a few meters, he noticed something strange. The walls were glowing faintly with a soft blue light. It was not fire or electricity. It was something else. Something alive. "Dragon magic," Mr. Yoon said. "The sanctuary ahead was built by my ancestors thousands of years ago. They infused these stones with their power so that the tunnels would always light the way for those who needed shelter. They walked for what felt like an hour. The tunnel twisted and turned, sometimes going up, sometimes going down. Do-hyun lost all sense of direction. But the glowing walls never faded, and Mr. Yoon seemed to know exactly where they were going. Eventually, the tunnel opened into a large cavern. Do-hyun stopped and stared in amazement that the sanctuary was enormous. The ceiling stretched so high that it disappeared into darkness. Crystals embedded in the rock gave off a warm golden light. There were buildings carved into the walls, ancient structures that looked like they had been there since the beginning of time. In the center of the cavern was a pool of clear water that reflected the light like a mirror, and everywhere Do-hyun looked, he saw signs of human presence. Modern supplies stored in containers, clothes hanging on lines, books stacked on stone tables. This place was not abandoned. It was being used. "Hymin set this up," Mr. Yoon said softly. "She spent years preparing the sanctuary for emergencies. She brought supplies, organized escape routes, made sure everything was ready in case we ever needed to hide." Do-hyun walked slowly through the cavern. His eyes fell on a small alcove near the pool. Inside was a desk covered with papers and notebooks. On the wall above the desk were photographs. Dozens of them. He moved closer and felt his heart stop. The photographs showed him at different ages. As a teenager standing at the tunnel entrance. As a young woman helping an injured creature that looked half human, half dragon. As a wife, just a few weeks before her death, smiling at the camera with tired but determined eyes. There were also pictures of other people. Men and women Do-hyun did not recognize. Guardians, he assumed. People like Hymin who had dedicated their lives to protecting the Titan dragons. And there was one photograph that made his breath catch in his throat. It showed Hymin holding a young Sira in her arms. The girl was crying, her golden eyes filled with fear. But Hymin was smiling at her with such warmth, such love, that it was clear she already considered Sarah family. "She never stopped caring," Mr. Yoon said from behind him. "Even after she married you, even when she tried to live a normal life, she never forgot about us. She visited this place every month. She wrote everything down in those notebooks. Do-hyun picked up one of the notebooks and opened it. The pages were filled with Hyun's handwriting. Detailed notes about dragon biology, guardian history, safe houses, contact networks. But mixed in with all the practical information were personal entries. Thoughts and feelings she had never shared with him. He found an entry dated a few weeks before her death. "I worry about Do-hyun," she had written. "He does not know about this part of my life, and sometimes the guilt of keeping secrets from him feels unbearable. But I have to protect him. If the hunters ever found out about his potential, they would come for him too. He has the gift, I am sure of it. His hands can fix things that should be impossible. His instincts are sharper than he realizes. One day, when the time is right, I will tell him everything. I will show him this world and introduce him to the people I have sworn to protect. I hope he will understand. I hope he will forgive me." The entry ended there. She never got the chance to tell him. She never got the chance to show him anything. Do-hyun closed the notebook and pressed it against his chest. Tears were streaming down his face, but he did not try to stop them. He let the grief flow, finally releasing years of pain and confusion. "She loved you more than anything," Mr. Yoon said gently. "Everything she did to protect the people she cared about. You, Sira, all of us." A sound echoed through the tunnel behind them. Footsteps, fast and light. Do-hyun spun around, ready to fight, but it was just Sira. She stumbled into the cavern, back in her human form, her clothes torn and her face covered in dirt and scratches. But she was alive. "I lost them in the forest," she said breathlessly. "They could not follow me through the tunnels. The entrance is hidden too well." She saw Do-hyun standing by the photographs and stopped. Her expression became uncertain, almost afraid. "Did you find her notes?" she asked quietly. Do-hyun nodded. He looked at the photograph of Hyun holding young Sarah. Then he looked at the real Sarah standing in front of him. The same golden eyes, the same vulnerability hidden beneath strength. "She loved you like a daughter," he said. "I can see it in these pictures." In her words, she wanted to save you no matter the cost. Sira's eyes filled with tears. "I know, and I have never stopped feeling guilty about it. Every day, I think about what might have happened if she had never found me. She might still be alive. You might still be happy." Do-hyun walked over to her and put his hands on her shoulders. "Listen to me carefully. My wife made her choices. She chose to be a guardian. She chose to protect you. She chose to die so you could live. Those were her decisions, and I am proud of every single one of them." He pulled her into a hug. "She wanted us to meet. She wanted me to protect you. I know that now, and I am going to honor her wish. Do you understand? You are not alone anymore. Neither of us is." Sira held onto him tightly. For the first time in 3 years, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could stop running. She could stop hiding. She could find a home. Mr. Yoon watched them with tears of his own. The old dragon had seen so much loss, so much pain, across his long life. But moments like this reminded him why the Titan dragons had always believed in humanity. Because even in the darkest times, humans were capable of incredible love. And love, more than fire, more than scales, more than ancient magic, was the most powerful force in the universe. They stayed in the sanctuary for 3 days. Mr. Yoon needed time to recover his strength, and Sira had pushed herself too hard during the fight at the garage. But mostly, they stayed because Do-hyun needed time to understand. He spent hours reading through Hyun's notebooks. Every page revealed something new about the woman he had married. Her fears, her hopes, her struggles to balance her duty as a guardian with her love for him. He learned about the network of humans who had dedicated their lives to protecting the last Titan dragons. He learned about the hunters and their organization, how they operated in shadows, hidden from the public eye, answering to people with power and money who saw dragons as threats to be eliminated. And he learned about himself in one of the later notebooks. Hemin had written extensively about guardian abilities, the gifts passed down through bloodlines, dormant in most people, but active in a few. She believed Do-hyun had inherited these abilities, probably from ancestors he never knew existed. The guardian gift shows itself in different ways, she had written. Some can sense danger before it arrives. Some can heal wounds with their touch. And some, like Do-hyun, can connect with objects and machines in ways that defy explanation. They can feel how things work, how they break, and how they can be fixed. It is a rare ability, one that was valued highly in ancient times when dragons and humans worked together to build great civilizations. Do-hyun thought about all the times he had fixed cars that should have been beyond repair. All the moments when his hands seemed to know what to do before his mind caught up. He had always thought it was just experience, just talent built over years of practice. Now he understood it was something more. On the second night, Sarah found him sitting by the pool, staring at his reflection in the water. "You should get some sleep," she said. "You have been awake for almost 2 days. I cannot sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see the fire. I see those men. I see Director Kwan's face when he admitted that they killed Hemin." Sarah sat down beside him. The golden glow of the crystals reflected in her eyes, making them look like small suns. "I know that feeling," she said. "After my parents were killed, I could not sleep for months. Every night, I relived their deaths. I heard their screams. I felt helpless, just like I felt when it happened." "How did you get through it?" Sarah was quiet for a moment. "Hemin helped me. She taught me that grief is not something you overcome. It is something you carry. The weight never fully goes away, but over time, you build the strength to bear it. And eventually, you find reasons to keep going." She looked at him with those ancient eyes that seemed too old for her young face. "Hemin was my reason for a long time. She gave me hope. She made me believe that even in a world full of people who wanted to hurt me, there were also people who wanted to protect me. Now that she is gone, I need to find new reasons." "Have you found any?" Do-hyun asked. Sarah smiled softly. "I think I have. Right here. In this place she built. With the people she loved." The words hit Do-hyun harder than he expected. He had spent 3 years thinking he was alone in the world. Now he realized that was never true. Hemin had left behind a legacy, connections that extended beyond her death. And Sarah was part of that legacy. "She wanted us to meet," Do-hyun said slowly. "She wrote about it in her notebooks. She hoped that someday, when the time was right, she could bring us together. She believed I could protect you. Do you believe that too?" Do-hyun looked at her. This girl who had lost everything, who had been running and hiding for most of her life, who carried guilt that was never hers to carry. He thought about Hemin and the promises she had made, the secrets she had kept, the sacrifices she had made. "Yes," he said firmly. "I do." On the 3rd day, Mr. Yoon called them together in the main chamber. The old dragon looked better than before, but there was still weakness in his movements. His skin had a grayish tint, and his breathing was shallow. "I need to tell you both something," he said. "Something difficult?" Sarah moved closer to him, concern on her face. "Grandfather, what is wrong?" Mr. Yoon smiled sadly. "I am old, child. Very old. I have lived for over 2,000 years. That is a long time, even for a Titan dragon. My body is failing. The transformation back in the fire took more out of me than I expected. I do not think I have much time left. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Sarah grabbed his hand, tears already forming in her eyes. "No, you cannot leave me. You are all I have left." "That is not true anymore," Mr. Yoon said gently. He looked at Do-hyun. "You have him now. The guardian your mother trusted with her life. The man your heart already recognizes as family." He reached out and took Do-hyun's hand as well, joining all three of them together. I was afraid for Sarah's future. For years, I worried about what would happen to her when I was gone. The last young dragon in a world that wants to destroy us. But now I see that Hyun planned for this. She knew that her husband would become your protector. She knew that the love she built would outlast her death. Mr. Yoon's golden eyes glowed faintly, and Do-hyun felt a strange warmth spreading through his body. It started in his hand and moved up his arm, filling his chest, reaching his heart. "I am giving you my blessing," Mr. Yoon said. "The blessing of the Titan dragons. It will awaken the guardian abilities sleeping inside you. It will give you the power to protect Sarah, to see threats before they arrive, to fight enemies that normal humans cannot face." The warmth intensified. Do-hyun felt something shifting inside him, like a door opening in his mind. Suddenly, he could feel the sanctuary around him. Not just see it, but feel it. Every stone, every crystal, every ancient carving was connected to him somehow. He could sense Sarah's heartbeat, strong and fast. He could sense Mr. Yoon's heartbeat, slow and fading. "This is my gift to you," Mr. Yoon continued. "At my request, take care of her. Not just her body, but her heart. She has been hurt so many times. She needs someone who will show her that the world is not just pain and loss. She needs someone who will be her family." Do-hyun squeezed the old dragon's hand. "I promise. On my life. On Hyun's memory. I will protect her." Mr. Yoon smiled. For a moment, he looked peaceful. Happy, even. Then his eyes closed, and his hand went limp. Sarah screamed. It was a sound that echoed through the cavern, filled with grief and loss and rage. She threw herself against her grandfather's chest, begging him to wake up, begging him not to leave her. But he was gone. The last elder of the Titan dragons had finally found rest. Do-hyun knelt beside Sarah and held her as she cried. He did not try to comfort her with words. There were no words for a moment like this. He just held her, letting her know that she was not alone. Outside the sanctuary, the hunters were still searching. Director Kwon was still planning. The war was far from over, but inside the sanctuary, in the soft golden light, a new family was being born from the ashes of the old, and that family would fight together no matter what came next. They buried Mr. Yoon in a chamber deep within the sanctuary. It was a place reserved for Titan dragons who had passed on, their bodies returning to the earth that had given them life. Sarah performed an ancient ritual that she had learned from her parents, speaking words in a language that Do-hyun did not understand, but somehow felt in his heart. When it was over, Sarah stood silently at the grave for a long time. Do-hyun waited beside her, giving her the space she needed. He understood grief. He had lived with it for 3 years, and he knew that sometimes the only thing you could do was stand still and let it wash over you. Finally, Sarah spoke. Her voice was quiet but steady. "He told me stories when I was a child, about the old days when dragons and humans lived together in peace. He said that the world was beautiful back then. Humans built cities that touched the clouds. Dragons flew freely through the skies. Everyone trusted each other." She turned to look at Do-hyun. He believed that one day, things could be like that again, that humans and dragons could find a way to coexist. He never gave up hope, even when everything seemed lost. "Do you believe that too?" Do-hyun asked. Sarah was quiet for a moment. "I want to, but it is hard to have hope when people like Director Kwon exist. when organizations hunt us down and kill anyone who tries to help us. Do-hyun put his hand on her shoulder. Then we give them a reason to believe. We show the world that dragons are not monsters, that guardians are not criminals. We expose the truth. Sira looked surprised. How? Haemin's notebooks, Do-hyun said. She documented everything. The locations of hunter bases, the names of officials who support them, the evidence of their crimes. If we can get this information to the right people, we can bring them down. Over the next few days, they went through every notebook, every file, every piece of evidence that Haemin had collected. It was an enormous amount of information. She had been careful and thorough, recording dates, times, and locations. She had photographs of hunter operations, recordings of conversations, financial records showing how the organization was funded. She was building a case, Do-hyun realized. She was going to expose them eventually. She just did not have enough time. Then we finish what she started, Sira said, determination burning in her golden eyes. They made a plan. It was risky, maybe even suicidal, but it was the only way to end this once and for all. Director Kwon and his hunters were based in an old military facility, about 50 kilometers from the sanctuary. According to Haemin's notes, this was where they brought captured dragons for experimentation. It was also where all their records were kept, evidence that could bring the entire organization crashing down. The plan was simple. Do-hyun would use his newly awakened guardian abilities to disable the facility's security systems. Sira would create a distraction, drawing the hunters away from the main building. Then Do-hyun would get inside, download the records, and broadcast them to every news station and government agency in the country. They will not be able to hide after that, Do-hyun said. Once the world sees what they have done, no amount of money or power will save them. They left the sanctuary on a cold morning, moving through the tunnels that Haemin had mapped out years ago. The passages led them deep into the mountains, eventually opening up near the hunter facility. Do-hyun looked at the compound from behind a row of trees. It was heavily fortified. Fences topped with barbed wire. Guard towers at every corner. Armed patrols walking the perimeter. This was not going to be easy. Are you ready? Sira asked. Do-hyun felt the power that Mr. Yoon had given him flowing through his veins. He could sense the electronic systems inside the facility, the hum of generators, the pulse of security cameras. He could feel how they connected, how they worked, how they could be broken. Ready, he said. Sira transformed. Her body shifted in an instant, scales covering her skin, wings spreading from her back. She was magnificent in the morning light, a creature of legend and power. "Give me 5 minutes," she said. "Then go." She launched herself into the sky. The guards saw her immediately. Alarms started blaring. Shouts filled the air. Soldiers ran to their positions, weapons raised toward the dragon circling above them. Sira breathed fire, but not at the soldiers. She aimed at the vehicles, at the fuel tanks, at everything that could burn without hurting anyone. Explosions erupted across the compound. Chaos spread like wildfire. Do-hyun counted down. 5 minutes. 4. 3. He reached out with his mind and felt the facility's security network. It was complex, layered with multiple protections. But he could see the weaknesses, the points where the system was vulnerable. He pushed with his thoughts, and one by one, the locks began to fail. Doors opened. Cameras went dark. Alarms that were not connected to Sira's attack fell silent. 2. 1. Do-hyun ran. He moved through the compound like a ghost, slipping past confused guards who were too focused on the dragon to notice him. He followed the path that Haemin had drawn in her notebooks, heading for the central building where the records were kept. The door was locked. But Do-hyun placed his hand on the electronic panel and felt the mechanism inside. A small push of power, and it clicked open. Inside was a room full of servers and computers. Monitors lined the walls, showing data that made Do-Hyun's stomach turn. Records of captured dragons. Experiment logs detailing horrible procedures. Financial transactions, linking the organization to powerful people in government and business. He plugged in the device that Sierra had given him. A piece of dragon technology that could download and transmit information faster than anything humans had invented. The data started flowing, copying onto the device and broadcasting simultaneously to dozens of destinations. "Come on," Do-Hyun muttered. "Come on." The door burst open behind him. Director Kwon stood there, his face twisted with rage. He was holding a weapon, something that looked like a cross between a gun and a machine from a science fiction movie. "I knew you would come," the director said. "I knew you would not be able to resist playing the hero. Just like your wife." Do-Hyun did not stop the download. He kept his hand on the device, feeling the data flowing through it. "You lost," he said calmly. "The information is already out there. Every news station in the country has it. Every government agency. The whole world will know what you did." Director Kwon's face went pale. "You are lying. Check for yourself." The director pulled out a phone and looked at the screen. His expression shifted from disbelief to horror to fury. "You have ruined everything," he snarled. "Years of work. Decades of preparation. All destroyed by a mechanic and a monster." He raised his weapon and pointed it at Do-Hyun. "But at least I will have the satisfaction of killing you." The wall behind Director Kwon exploded. Sarah came through the opening in full dragon form, her scales glowing with inner fire. She grabbed the director with one massive claw and threw him across the room like a toy. He crashed into a wall and slumped to the floor, unconscious. "The data?" Sarah asked. Do-Hyun pulled the device free. The download was complete. "Done. Everything is out. They cannot stop it now." Sarah transformed back into her human form and grabbed his hand. "Then let us go. This place will be swarming with more hunters soon." They ran through the chaos of the burning compound. Soldiers were shouting, trying to organize a response, but it was too late. The damage was done. The truth was freed as they disappeared into the forest. Do-Hyun looked back one last time at the facility. Smoke was rising into the sky. Sirens were wailing in the distance. It was the beginning of the end for the hunters, and the beginning of something new for him and Sarah. The news spread like wildfire across the world. Every television channel, every website, every social media platform was talking about the leaked files. The documents exposed decades of secret operations, illegal experiments, and government cover-ups. Names of powerful people were revealed. Bank accounts were frozen. Arrests were made in dozens of countries. Director Kwon was found guilty of multiple crimes and sentenced to life in prison. His organization was dismantled piece by piece. The facilities where dragons had been held captive were raided, and the survivors were finally set free. For the first time in centuries, the world knew that Titan dragons were real. And for the first time in centuries, there was a real conversation about what that meant. Some people were afraid. They saw the footage of Sarah in her dragon form, breathing fire and destroying vehicles, and they wanted more protection, more weapons, more walls. But others saw something different. They saw a young girl protecting her family. They saw a creature fighting for survival against people who wanted to destroy her. They saw courage and pain and hope. The debate raged for months. Scientists wanted to study the dragons. Politicians wanted to regulate them. Religious leaders argued about what their existence meant for humanity's place in the universe. Through it all, Do-Hyun and Sarah stayed hidden. They had returned to the sanctuary after the raid on the Hunter facility. It was the safest place they knew, protected by ancient magic and hidden from prying eyes. They spent weeks there, recovering from everything they had been through, grieving for Mr. Yoon, and planning for the future. Do-yoon knew they could not stay hidden forever. The world was changing, and they had a part to play in that change. But first, there were things that needed to be done. He filed papers with the government. It took months of legal work, interviews, and background checks. But eventually, the adoption went through. Sira was officially his daughter. When the certificate arrived, Sira held it in her hands and stared at it for a long time. "This is real," she whispered. "I have a family again. A real family." Dahyam put his arm around her shoulders. "You always had a family. Himin loved you like a daughter. Mr. Yoon raised you like his own granddaughter. The only thing that changed is a piece of paper." Sira smiled through her tears. "A very important piece of paper." They stayed in the sanctuary through the winter, but when spring came, they made a decision. It was time to rejoin the world. Dahyam rebuilt his auto repair shop. It took weeks of hard work, clearing away the ashes and debris from the fire, constructing new walls and a new roof. But when it was finished, it looked better than before. Stronger, more resilient. He added a new sign above the door. Instead of just advertising auto repair, it said something else underneath. Help for those in need. Word spread quickly through the supernatural community. Dragons who had been in hiding for centuries started to appear. Some just wanted a safe place to rest. Others needed help adapting to the modern world. Do-yoon and Sarah welcomed them all, offering food, shelter, and guidance. The shop became a way station, a place where magical creatures could find safety in a world that was still learning to accept them. Not everyone was friendly. There were still people who hated dragons, who feared what they represented. But there were also people who reached out with curiosity and kindness. A group of university students came to interview Sira for a documentary. A local journalist wrote a series of articles about the history of Titan dragons. Children from the nearby town started coming by after school. Fascinated by the stories, Sira told them about the old days when humans and dragons were friends. Slowly, carefully, trust began to grow. 1 year after the raid on the Hunter facility, Do-yoon and Sira made a special trip. They drove through the mountains to a small cemetery overlooking a valley. The spring flowers were blooming, covering the hillside in colors of pink and white and yellow. They walked together to a grave marked with a simple stone. The name carved into it was Himin Kang. Do-yoon knelt down and placed fresh flowers beside the stone. Sira stood next to him, her hand resting on his shoulder. "I brought her," Do-yoon said softly to the grave. "Just like you wanted. She is safe now. She is happy. And she is my daughter." Sira knelt down beside him. "Thank you," she said to the stone. "Thank you for finding me. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for giving me a family, even when you knew what it might cost you. I will never forget what you did. I will carry your memory with me forever." They stayed at the grave for a long time, sharing silence and memories. The wind blew gently through the trees, carrying the scent of flowers and earth. Somewhere in the valley below, birds were singing. Finally, Do-yoon stood up. He looked at Sira with eyes that were wet but clear. "She would be proud of you," he said, "of everything you have become." Sira smiled. "She would be proud of you too. You finished what she started. You changed the world." Do-yoon shook his head. "We changed the world. Together. You, me, Mr. Yoon, and Himin. She was there every step of the way, guiding us through her notebooks and her plans. This was her victory as much as ours." They walked back to the car, but before getting in, Sira stopped and looked at the mountains rising in the distance. "Do you think there are more of us out there?" she asked. "Other Titan dragons still hiding, still afraid?" "Probably," Do-yoon said. "The world is a big place, and dragons have been hiding for a long time. Then we have work to do. Syrah's golden eyes burned with determination. We need to find them, help them, show them that they do not have to be afraid anymore. Dalian smiled. He thought about the strange path that had led him here. A mechanic who lost his wife and found a daughter. A man who discovered that magic was real and that he had a gift he never knew existed. A guardian who had finally learned what he was meant to protect. Then let us get started, he said. They drove back home, the mountains fading behind them, the future spreading out ahead. There would be challenges. There would be danger. There would be people who would never accept the truth about dragons and guardians. But there would also be hope. There would be family. There would be love. And that, Doyun had learned, was enough to change everything. Syrah reached over and took his hand. Her small fingers wrapped around his, warm and trusting. Thank you, she said quietly. For saving me. For choosing me. For being my father. Dalian squeezed her hand gently. Thank you for giving me a reason to live again. They drove on in comfortable silence. Two broken souls who had found each other in the darkness and built something beautiful from the ashes. A family. A home. A new beginning.